Your claim, you came in here and said, look, I got super triggered. You were talking about this stuff and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You can totally make a cryptocurrency that monitors inflation better than the Federal Reserve.
You're not going to stop whining until we talk about inflation.
We can talk about inflation.
Well, you're the one that made this big claim that you're running from. You're running like a dog with your tail between its legs.
I'm not running away. Whoa.
Oh, can we stop talking about inflation, please? That's because you're wrong, and you're totally twisting words around to try to make yourself right.
No, I'm not.
You are completely wrong. You are completely incorrect.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
You did literally. Okay, clip the stream. He said he did literally say I was wrong.
Comedy show. Okay, fine. Fair enough. Okay. I see that Coyote Doge has joined the call.
Really?
Yes. He's got a little VTuber Doge avatar. Look at that. Hello? Oh my god.
Even.
And you can bring it up at him. He's got a little Doge.
I gotta bring it up. That's amazing.
Yes. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for the chance to come chat with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
You got my elephant rampaging on economics and cryptocurrency.
Yes, that's the goal.
I had to come explain some things, but I figured I wanted to come from an actual engineer's perspective. I'm like, not trying to shill something, not trying to tell you it's the next future, but just kind of it feels from this side that when folks are talking about it as being a scam or some bullshit, it sounds kind of like somebody saying, well, because somebody used a car in a bank robbery, all cars are criminal. Like, no, please, there's a lot of technical innovation going on and some real problems being solved that I think get missed in the whole, there's some horrible scam that happened or some bullshit like art NFTs.
Right. Well, first, should we call you Coyote or Doge or both?
Coyote's fine.
Okay. So you can yell at Adam. I'm a neutral observer in this conversation. What did Adam get wrong?
Well, first off, just kind of that general dismissive stance of it's a scam and there's no real value in it. And now, obviously that's because there hasn't been much chance to actually dig into the pros and cons and what's going on with it. So I get that this is just sort of an offhanded joke that you're giving, but it really kind of set me off with the MMT part and how you're kind of right as far as a monetary policy. The main issue that I see coming up in the debate is who's executing that policy. And with cryptocurrency, we're trying to make that policy algorithmic and actually bake it into the math so that that's just how the money behaves. Nobody has to decide anything. There's no policy around it. It's just the money's smart enough to behave in response to the market.
So what behave how? What is the goal of the money?
Well, it depends on which one you're talking about. Depends on what the use case is, but we can go to the most well-known example, Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin being the first one that really took off, its whole prospect is to be a bank effectively. That basic process that a bank serves of we're going to keep a ledger of everyone's accounts, and as people spend money back and forth between each other, we'll update that ledger and keep track of everyone's balances. It's doing that basic job, but it's doing it in a way that we don't have to trust anyone to maintain the ledger.
Yeah, but it's not doing the job that USD does, though.
But it's not supposed to do the job USD does.
Right, but
it's not intending to be a currency backed by the military application of securing oil.
Well, you need okay, nice little dig there. I like that how you threw that in. The like we've talked about many times on the show, the point that is useful for people, and I know people deny that this is useful in the same way that people who want to abolish the police deny that the police are useful. They say, listen, we got to defund the police. They all suck. Every interaction I've had with cops is lame. We got to get rid of them. They're not doing any good. Well, the central bank serves a purpose called price stability we've talked about. And I realize a lot of people say price stability's whack. I fucking hate. We don't need price stability. Okay, the market will stabilize itself. We don't need that thing.
I disagree with that, and I
Okay.
agree with you.
So we have some agreement there. Well, you can't get price
Yes.
stability out of Dogecoin or out of Bitcoin.
So that's where I think there's a disconnect between the messaging the public gets from the various advocates of it's the next thing, buy all your Bitcoin now. Like, first off, flat one, I'm not giving anybody financial advice. In fact, my standard is most people should not be getting into this. I think the real use case is business to business transactions, especially international business to business transactions. So rather than have to deal with the politics of my host country having a good relationship with your host country in trying to form this business relationship, we can fall back on some blockchain solution. We can handle that in Bitcoin. We can handle that with some other cryptocurrency. And the real benefit being that because the currency itself is automated and because it's cryptographically secure, we can form autonomous business relationships.
I know
So
you're not saying anything
Well,
I don't know. I know
wait.
all of this stuff.
Can you give me like some concrete example? Because I don't understand any of what, like, I don't understand like what this means logistically at all.
And I remember I did try to
Well-
get financial advice out of you. I asked him if I should short Coinbase, and Coinbase is down 9% today. So please, why didn't you sign off on the coin? I could have made 20%. It's down 20% from when I asked you. Doge, what are you
Because
doing?
you asked if you should because you asked if you should short Bitcoin.
No,
and
I
I
asked-
don't give financial advice.
No, I asked about shorting Coinbase.
Oh, well,
the
either way, I don't
stock
give financial
Coinbase.
advice. I design tech.
Well, that would have been
Well, no, but like-
great financial advice.
When you say something like a country to country interaction could be done via, or crypto, like I don't, and that would solve a problem. Like, well, what's the problem and what is it solving? I guess.
The problem is inherently the limitations of a centralized entity like a central bank being able to respond to the economy and the uncertainty that including politics in the monetary policy adds to business. If I have an algorithmic system that I know in the code how it works and that code can't change, then I can more accurately predict how the money's going to behave. Now, its relationship to other currencies, like the fiat value of that's a whole other matter. But as an example, we can have as an example, the project I'm working on,
Mhm.
we're working on tokenizing compute resources. So that way businesses can more effectively secure the cloud computing they need and not have to worry about some other currency. And there's several other projects that are working on tokenizing other aspects of the economy. So that way you can set up more autonomous relationships. You can have systems talking to each other more directly, transacting in tokenized commodities that they need. So there's not as much of a need to go to the fiat currency when I'm just trying to get a process done, or I'm just trying to buy electricity.
I don't understand any of that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe part of this comes down to some confusion on a lot of the definitions being used, because one of the other things that gets a little triggering is when people conflate money and currency as the same thing, and they're not. One, you can have something that could serve as both, but conceptually,
we're not
money
doing that.
is very different from currency.
We're not doing that though. So it's kind of I understand the difference. Currency we can talk about it as a hard definition. People have a bunch of different definitions for money, so we're happy to use the terminology of currency. I don't think separating out the two is going to get us very much. A question I have for you is
actually, I think that's where it would be valuable, because to Stitch's point, what is the value there in tokenizing aspects of the economy? We're trying to create more directly correlated money it's not necessarily intended to be used as currency.
Well, how are you defining money then?
Tokenized work.
Money is tokenized work?
Yes.
Okay.
As in the physics definition, work being the expenditure of energy over time.
So you're creating a completely new definition of money. Money is generally
it's considered a store of value.
Or a medium of exchange.
Yes. Well, no. Currency is a medium of exchange. Money is a store of value. You can use your store of value as a medium of exchange.
Let's not debate definitions, okay? I don't want to get into a definitions game. I have a very specific question. I have a very specific question for you that maybe we can put some substance on this conversation. There is a challenge that the central banks have, that to keep full employment and ensure price stability. Right now we're having a giant inflation problem. Obviously the central banks have failed at their ultimate goal of price stability. How is it possible to create a crypto system that facilitates price stability by increasing the money supply or decreasing the money supply to stabilize pricing?
Yes, that's actually how most modern cryptocurrencies work.
So, but that's not how Bitcoin works. Bitcoin is it's 21 million. Yeah, the whole idea behind Bitcoin is that
the first one. It's a prototype.
Okay, so that's what people like about Bitcoin. Bitcoin, the selling point for them is that it can't be the supply can't be inflated or decreased.
Yeah, they're also idiots.
Okay, so you want to come up with a cryptocurrency that mimics the central bank.
So as an example, that has already been done with Ethereum. Now, I want to be clear here. When we're going to talk about price stability, we're not talking about the value to fiat. That is a whole other matter. There's a lot of market activity that goes into that valuation that I don't think is applicable to what you're talking about. What you're looking for is, and in this case, to kind of rephrase what you're saying to make sure I'm understanding, is that the central bank, the purpose of that monetary policy is to help stabilize the price, not lock it. So it allows for some variance on whatever economy that currency is supposed to be used in. Okay. With Ethereum, there is baked into it. So a little background for the audience might not know. Ethereum's different blockchain from Bitcoin. Its point is you can deploy code to the blockchain that other people can interact with. So you can run little programs on it to get various tasks done. Within that, in order to run those programs, there is a fee. The fee being based on how complex the program is to run, how much data it has to store, and how much traffic there is on the network overall. In the past, Ethereum would just produce more Ethereum. So as people are mining blocks, processing the transactions, the fee would be taken from the users. It would just produce more Ethereum, and all of that would go out to the miners. Recently, a change was introduced where, yes, it's still producing more Ethereum, so it's like it's minting money, but similar to MMT, with taxes reducing the supply by bringing more currency back in and out of circulation, it has a burn process attached to the fee. So now, as people are paying for the transactions to get done, part of their fee is just taken out of the circulation. It's just
Is it like a sales tax, or do they come right into your bank account and just take the money out?
It's like a sales tax. It's that when you process the transaction, you are paying the transaction fee, and within the system, a portion of that transaction fee goes to the miner, and a portion is just burned in the system, just destroyed. And so now you have two mechanisms that are responding to the market. You have this continual inflation that's occurring by new Ethereum coming into existence as a subsidy to the miners, and you have some Ethereum based on network utilization being destroyed. And so that has actually led to a significant impact on the price stability of executing transactions. Now, getting past paying for services within that economy is much more predictable because this algorithmic MNT process was implemented.
But
what is a
what
what is
can
a
you buy?
task? What is a task you would do besides mining or trading Ethereum?
Perfect example would be very popular lending protocol where people can deposit various other cryptocurrencies into a contract managed liquidity pool as collateral, and then users can then borrow other currencies that are available in that liquidity pool.
Did you
Another
get that,
example would
Sitch?
be
No, I don't know. What the
another.
fuck any of that-
Well, all right, maybe a better
Can
example
I
would be
buy
things like a
gasoline?
decentralized
Listen,
exchange.
gasoline is pretty expensive. Can I buy gasoline with my Ethereum? No.
Well,
no,
you can, but you have to buy it by the barrel, and you need to order, I think, at least 50 barrels.
There you go. See, no, but I mean, is it like you said that people could use the blockchain for some other purpose? That's what I thought you said. And I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, what is the purpose? I guess.
So, like, an example is there's several out there. So, like, for example, on Ethereum, you know how there's centralized exchanges. There's a company running computers somewhere trading stocks,
Right.
other cryptocurrencies back and forth. We have decentralized exchanges that are run entirely with smart contracts deployed on the blockchain. So no humans in charge, nobody has any control over it. You can just go in and deposit money to provide liquidity to that market, and people can trade back and forth without having to go through an intermediary. Another example is a project called Energy. They're literally tokenizing electricity. So the whole big complicated economics around producing electricity, trading electricity between various producers back and forth. So when you have surplus energy, you're selling it off to other grids or you're buying electricity from them. They're tokenizing all of that and streamlining the whole interaction.
Right. So you could use this blockchain technology to literally buy electricity, is what you're saying, for your company at the moment.
You can literally do it right now. It's called Energy.
Okay. Right. And so what is the
exists.
benefit of doing that versus buying electricity the normal way?
For one, the system's a lot more efficient. You
Mhm.
can execute a transaction to handle that a lot faster than you could under traditional systems. It is more directly tied to the market because it is now tied into the electricity production. So the money itself, the tokens, are responding to the energy production. It's properly mapping who's producing what at any given second. It can also allow for more immediate and automated exchange of that, so that rather than have to have other centralized systems that we have to maintain and upkeep and run, an entire self-funding economy of people running the miners and processing the transactions can respond a lot more effectively. So it's really just kind of streamlining the entire process and making that currency that we're using for that economy a lot more responsive to what is actually happening in that economy.
Gotcha.
Are you following, Sitch?
Yeah.
So how do you get price stability? I get that you're saying that the money is being created and taxed away automatically, but what is the input to make sure that you're taxing away the right amount? And is the tax like fluctuating? Like if you have a transaction, one day you might pay sales tax that's 15%, and one day you might pay sales tax that's 8%. Is that how it works? Or
it's a little bit. It's based on this is where things get a little technical, but you can treat it kind of like a menu on an order. So when you're executing a transaction on a smart contract enabled chain like Ethereum, you're literally asking the miner to run some code for you. Within the blockchain, there is a defined fee structure on every single instruction the computer has to execute.
so the sales tax isn't fluctuating.
That's haven't finished explaining. That provides a base fee on what it's going to cost to get the work done. Just establishing like, look, you have work that needs to get done. This is bottom line, period, how little it could cost. Then factored into that is a calculation on the amount of queued transactions, like how much is left that other people want to run. And it actually works. It's not a direct tax. It's actually a auction where people are paying more or less as they want to try to move themselves up in the queue to get their transaction executed faster.
You know,
So the
I'm not.
system
I'm
isn't
not.
setting a. Hold on. No, that's what I'm clarifying. So the
Well, I'm not
system
certain
is
you
setting
understand the
a-
question. So
you're asking how is the fee fluctuating, and I'm
I'm
establishing
not. But I'm not
that-
asking you about the fee. I'm not asking you how the fee
Yeah.
works. I'm asking you how does the coin produce price stability when the Federal Reserve is focused on price stability. They're focused on adding more currency to the system, or taxing more currency, or taking more currency away through bond lending. How does this system interface with actual prices in the real world?
It's only concerned about price stability for its own services.
So it's not concerned with price stability then. Like it'll have nothing to do with the
It's
price of gasoline.
Okay, but that's where I was being clear, is that the price stability is for the economy the currency serves.
Right.
And that's sort of the issue we're getting at with the designs. Like,
right, but the central bank
where
serves
I
the
stand-
entire economy though. That's the rub.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at, is philosophically and from a pure design standpoint, I and several people in the sector argue it doesn't do that job, and it can't do that job.
The central bank can't do that job?
Period. It's not doing a good job now. The failure that is presenting now is not a policy matter in most people's minds, my mind specifically. It is a inherent problem with a central system like this that is operated by humans.
Well, okay,
There's
but
too much going on, too much delay between what they're doing and what the market actually needs.
Well, I hear you, but how? So you're here pitching that some automated system can do a better job of doing that, and I'm trying to figure out. I mean, how does the automated system do that?
Well, that's what I was getting at with the very specific use case. But to abstract it out, the idea would be that there isn't a single currency, that there is a bunch of little currencies all serving various portions of the overall economy, all serving various markets. They're focused on algorithmically providing price stability and properly indexing that market.
So I have a different currency that I use for gasoline, and I have a different currency that I use for groceries, and I have a different currency that I use for rent.
No. Again, not you. The businesses do.
Right.
The companies do.
Well, they already have that anyway.
Price stability.
Like they're already dealing in contracts. I mean, a lot of futures contracts and commodity contracts are.
But they're denominated in fiat.
Well, they're dominating USD, exactly, because USD has a central bank devoted to price stability. That's why they do it. El Salvador got into a big fucking shit show because they decided they were going to run their economy in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin got eviscerated.
Well, now we're kind of getting into businesses aren't doing it because they want to. They have to. Well, there's just not another viable alternative for them to denominate their contracts in. Every time a business can, they would rather denote it in something else, some in-kind service being rendered, some interest that's due.
If they had price stability, they would, but I don't think that Bitcoin offers that price stability.
But that's what I'm getting at, is for transacting on Bitcoin, it provides, well, Bitcoin is not a good example. I don't like Bitcoin anyway. It's a prototype, so I'm not going to agree with you on any of that or disagree on any of that. The point being is that trying to load an entire global economy with a monetary policy administered by humans that are politically influenced and motivated primarily is never going to be able to provide that price stability. And it's not a policy thing. It is simply down to the time lag The market does something. Some people have to collect that data. Then they have to analyze that data. They have to produce a report. Then some politicians have to dicker over the report. They have to insert whatever their political agenda is that may be benefiting the economy, that may be trying to get a subsidy for their particular district, whatever.
Well, I know how the system works,
in the
but
Fed.
I know
But
how
that's
this.
what I'm getting at.
I know
is
how the
that
system works,
delay.
but how?
Okay,
How
so how do you think
does-
that's efficient?
Well, how do you think your system solves the problem?
By focusing on smaller scope, a particular market, by focusing on exactly what that market needs to provide price stability within that market.
So you have a currency set up for one market. So you have a different currency for gas and groceries and
For businesses, again, the idea is that there would be other layers, something above that you could still buy gas in USD. You still
Right.
go pay USD. Visa is still doing stuff in USD, but Visa is now paying, they're paying USD to the gas station company too. But the gas station company, when they're buying gas, they could be using gas tokens. That's the point.
right.
Is that behind it is a very focused currency and a very focused money for a very particular market. Because as an analogy, what you're trying to get at, like, oh, well, you're going to have all these different currencies for all these markets, and that's going to complicate the individual person's life. Not exactly. To make your analogy to gas options, gas futures, you're not buying gas futures when you fill up your car. The gas company is. Well, how about we replace gas futures denominated in USD with a gas token that algorithmically indexes gas production?
Do you know why people trade gas futures?
Well, to make money
Well, no, businesses
and
do
to
it
acquire
for
gas.
what's that?
And to acquire gas.
Right, yeah. But also for what reason?
To make money and acquire gas. Sure. And
Well,
there will
no,
be somebody
companies
else that
do it.
will pay
Companies do
those pay the gas token for gas.
Companies do it for price stability too. If I'm
Yeah.
Airline and I feel like inflation
So,
is getting out of control, I'd
why
like to
not?
stabilize the price by
why
buying.
why not just remove a layer there? Like from our mind, there's a completely unnecessary layer of trying to manage gas futures in USD. How about we just remove USD from the factor there and handle it instead on the actual trading side? I have bought a gas future. I would like to make profit from it. I will sell you this gas future denominated in a token for some USD.
Let me interject, because I understand now why you and so many engineer type people are very interested in what you're talking about, because I definitely understand the appeal to saying, okay, let's take out this faulty human element from the system. Let's take out this faulty political element from the system. There's going to be some cold, hard, logical, dispassionate algorithm that's going to do all this stuff for us. And I understand the appeal to that, but I don't see how what you're saying is possible from a conceptual level, because it's always going to be in any system, especially any system that's large enough, it's always going to be a political question. The system is always going to help and favor some people and not favor other people. And deciding which way the scales go is a political question.
Okay.
Well, and there is a question of the inputs, because the way markets work, Sitch, is people have information that is basically distributed amongst a bunch of people. So if somebody has inside information about a company, they're incentivized. If I know some company has some new thing that they're going to patent that's going to be all the rage, that information incentivizes me to go buy the stock and bid up the stock.
Of course.
With his system, what is the input for the computer? All the distributed information among the people, how is that input into the system for whether or not prices should go up or down?
Okay, so that's another point here, is that This is not replacing that market. This is managing the relationship of a currency to the actual thing of value that is being traded. So that's where I think maybe your perception, like let's turn it around and establish that these, like using these gas tokens as a hypothetical example, they would be traded on the market by people. People would be buying and selling them just like they do futures with the same motivation. They could be using USD to transact them back and forth. The difference being is we now have a better system, better signals to get to the market, rather than it having to be this whole haphazard process.
How is it a better signal, though? You're not articulate. You're not.
Well, wait. You kind of stole my question out.
Okay.
You changed the subject. Okay. Which is that, I'm not knowledgeable enough about economics to provide some concrete example, unfortunately. But I am knowledgeable enough to understand that in all these financial transactions, part of the reason the housing bubble, was created in the first place was because, certain legal factors existed that people figured out oh, this is a way to game the system. They looked at you can look at our laws as basically an algorithm and say, oh, this is the way to game the system. This is the way to make a shit ton of money. And then, create the bubble and everything gets fucked. And what I'm saying is that any algorithm that's created by a person or by machine learning or something, it's always going to have people gaming it. And it's always going to have certain groups of people be favored by it. And so I don't see how you can possibly remove politics from it, because people are always going to be advocating for the algorithm or the system to change to benefit one group and harm another group.
Okay, so perfect example using that housing to kind of get down into a bit of the guts of how that might work.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, in that housing example, part of the problem was that the subprime mortgages were bundled up with prime mortgages.
Right.
And they were sold as a bundle that was opaque. People buying the bundle did not have a good way to get information on what was in the bundle.
That's not true.
What?
That's completely not
that was
true.
The whole point.
No, listen, I read the book, The Big Short. I saw the movie. There's a guy who actually went through the tranches to look at what was bundled in them so he could make a shitload of money on them.
I understand, but that wasn't a very good signal. It wasn't very transparent then, if not opaque. It was very difficult to go through those tranches. The guy had to devote a lot of time to go through them.
You had to be an autistic math wizard, but the incentive. This is the entire point.
What if we could turn?
Hold on, just one second. Let me finish here. This is the entire point. The knowledge, the knowledge of the autistic math wizard was put into the system by this guy who was incentivized to make a shitload of money and was spreading the signal out, telling everybody these things are going to fall apart. These things are going to fall apart. How does that signal get into the algorithm?
The algorithm is producing the signal. That's what I'm getting at here, is we can write the algorithm to be that autistic wizard.
Sitch.
And just surface it in how the tokens behave.
Sitch, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say, the thing, which I thought you were going with the autistic math wizard, was that you have Christian Bale's character.
Yeah, that's him.
Is financially incentivized to go figure this out and understand this. And that's so much of what markets are.
Yes.
They're not cooperative. They're competitive. And they're people trying to figure out things other people haven't.
Mm-hmm.
They're people trying to screw other people out of money, essentially, is what a lot of these markets are. And I guess I can't conceptualize. And I was curious what the example would be with the housing crash. I can't conceptualize a way in which the markets are quote unquote fair. And then two, I don't think the people that are investing in these markets want them to be fair.
That's the problem that making it algorithmic is trying to solve.
Right.
So using that housing example, as you got into it, it's an autistic wizard devoting a lot of time, which took a lot of money to figure all of that out. and then the knowledge was just in his head, and he was able to go sell that knowledge to other people. If I'm rephrasing what you're saying, both of you, on that. In that case, what this blockchain technology allows us to do is say, hey, wizard, you could make just as much, if not more money, by taking your entire analysis process that into code, a smart contract we can deploy that can just index the underlying market automatically and surface that information. And now as everyone else comes and tries to get that information to go, I want to play the housing market, I want to know the status of these tranches, I want to know what every little mortgage is in. Previously, I would have had to find an autistic wizard like you and pay them a lot of money to do an analysis. And that analysis would be on a time delay from wherever they took their market data and did the analysis. What if instead I could just go to the blockchain and see, oh, you have the housing tranches set up as smart contracts here. All of the data is immediately available. Oh, and from there, I can dig down into the individual mortgages and see what their status is to check the health of that. Okay, now I, as someone trying to play this market, have much more ready access to a lot more information. I'm getting the same signal, but I'm getting a lot faster and a lot cheaper, which makes it much easier to scale, and you can make up any possible loss from getting that prime contract to sell that information on just selling it for pennies to thousands times more people. And this is not a hypothetical. This is what's happening in blockchain right now. We have these sorts of markets.
Well, if I understand what you're saying, basically what you're saying is like, we'll use Christian Bale's character as an example. It would basically be exactly
in this model,
what happened.
I'm Christian Bale.
It would basically be exactly what happened. The only difference is, instead of Christian Bale working for a private firm in which he goes and gets, a bunch of rich people to buy into it, he puts his analysis up on, the blockchain. He puts it on some market, and people can click on his analysis and say, oh, I like this analysis, I'm going to give this guy my money, right? That's basically essentially what you're laying out.
It would be the first layer in building more protocols on top of that to consume that automatically and do further work, so to further automate the economy.
Well,
and
I thought the whole point
it wouldn't
was
necessarily end up being the same. It's hopefully the theory that we're working out and seems to be proving as we implement it is that by reducing that friction, you reduce the potential for that crash, because now the market can get the signals and respond a lot faster, meaning it can correct a lot sooner.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like when Christian Bale puts up his algorithm, okay, the bot, the algorithm, or when Christian Bale puts up his analysis, okay, the algorithm that controls the system is not going to be able to look at it and say, this guy is correct about the market, and then make an adjustment. Because there's going to be a million Christian Bales, or there's going to be a dozen Christian Bales who are all going to have their analysis. They're all going to be competing for people to buy into them.
Yeah, the other side of the trade.
So how is anyone going to know that Christian Bale's analysis is better than Joe Schmidlap's analysis?
All right, 2 points there. One, we can get into that example, but that's not what I was getting at of he posts his analysis. The way the system works is he would put up his algorithm.
Right.
He would put up his process of, okay, I'm getting data from all of these markets, from all these various sources. And I have a smart contract on the blockchain that when you execute a transaction with it, it takes all of this information that it has access to. It does whatever its job is.
Where does that information come from?
A variety of sources. It can come from other code that is also on the blockchain that you could directly call with your code. There's a variety of mechanisms we have for feeding more market data into these blockchains to make that available. And we have more automated systems that will directly execute transactions based on that data, and again, getting the system to run.
Do you know the way they fight inflation now? So you came in here and made a claim that
Wait. We're changing the subject.
okay.
Okay.
We'll go back to mine. I don't know where this is going, Sitch. Where you're going with this?
What I don't.
This seems
I guess
completely irrelevant to me.
It's not irrelevant because
Well-
all this. What I don't understand is it seems like it's just recreating the exact system that we have, except it's like internetizing it. Like you can go on the internet and you can search for anything and you try to find out the one information you need from the needle in the haystack.
But
and,
it's not.
And Google has all these algorithms to try to figure out what you want, but it's not. It can't regulate everything itself. It still relies on all these human inputs and outputs, all these human decisions. And it seems like you're kind of trying to advocate for a system detached from human influence, and I don't even see how that's possible.
Or it's
to
not
be
detached
clear,
from human influence.
It's not supposed to be detached from human influence. To be clear, let's nail in on something that I offhandedly pointed out that you agreed with, that I think is the really important factor there, is that time delay. And
Right.
the fact that it's a human doing the analysis each time. It's that point I want analysis on the market. You have to collect data and you have to produce the report on that analysis. You collect the data at a point in time.
But hold on. I understand the time delay thing. Okay,
But-
you don't
but-
have to
no,
explain every
but-
detail of the time
Okay.
delay. If
All
the
right.
decision
So
is
that's the point of making it
incorrect,
algorithmic.
if the decision that the algorithm makes is incorrect, the time delay is in your favor because you're slowing yourself down for making a terrible decision. Okay, so I don't know how the time delay is relevant here.
Because if you're trying to make an accurate decision to respond to the market, and the market changes between when you get the data and you can produce the analysis to take action, it is harder to correct and respond to that.
You could get the
And
wrong data though. This is completely, and this is why I keep interrupting you, Sitch, because I can't figure out where this is going. He's come in.
I want to say that first of all, the annoyance in my tone of voice is directed at Adam, not at Keone. Okay.
I don't want to hear. I'm not here for a lecture on time delay. Okay, I understand how time delay works.
It's because
but you keep brushing over it.
Adam, you're trying to fixate on like some very specific technical aspect of this, which is important.
I know how high frequency trading works. Okay,
90% of I understand that, but 90% of people that are listening don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well,
and it's kind of like an irrelevant conversation. And
right.
I'm trying to focus on a more broad picture, which is that broadly, I don't understand. It just seems like you just want to recreate what we're doing. And it would just, I guess my broad point is, I think that if this system that you're talking about was implemented, it would literally just be exactly what we have right now. It would be no different, except that it would be a little faster because things would be on the internet, essentially. That'd be the only difference.
And I don't know how it
would
be faster.
more transparent.
It wouldn't necessarily. It wouldn't be more transparent because with the Christian Bale example, but you still have
with the Christian.
Do you think I want my trades to be transparent? Do you think people want their trades to be transparent?
No, your trades don't have to be transparent, but the market data can be transparent.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's the point. So in this analogy with Christian Bale, recontextualize Christian Bale as not a guy who's churning through data and producing a report. Christian Bale is now me, and I am coming up with code that can be deployed that will produce some valuable result. And if you find it valuable, you can come interact with it. If other people find that valuable, they can come interact with it. I don't have to incur a whole lot of cost in trying to manage a custodial market. People don't have to worry about the regulations.
Has nothing to do with inflation. This has nothing to do with the claim that
I know this has nothing
Zero.
to do with inflation. I know, but wait a second. Okay.
What you're the one that came in here and made this huge claim.
Wait.
Pardon me for holding you to your gigantic claim. Go ahead.
We're right on the cusp here. We can get back to inflation.
Right.
I promise.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we're on the cusp here. So the issue that I'm getting at is that Christian Bale uploads his code. That's an analysis or an algorithm or whatever that's supposed to produce something. Okay. There's 50 other people like Christian Bale who all have uploaded their they're competing codes essentially. They're supposed to all be doing the same thing, making these predictions about the markets or whatever. And the only way that a person is going to be able to click one and understand it is if they have the technical investment knowledge of the people making the code, which they don't have, which is why people go to Merrill Lynch or Lehman Brothers or any of these investment banks and they say, I don't have this knowledge. I trust that you have this knowledge. I'll pay you to go make this decision. That's why I'm saying it sounds like all you would be doing is replicating the exact process that we already have.
If you recall, way back, I said, I see this as being really useful business to business,
right?
Not for the average user. I don't think that this is very applicable to anybody trying to buy a pack of gum and a gallon of gas.
Okay, but so I guess the issue would be each investment bank is going to have their own version of this, and they're all going to trust their version. They're not going to trust the other person's version.
But they would have their own version that is tied in with others. So that's another point is right now you have to have these massive systems, these like Merrill Lynch or Lehman Brothers or whatever. You have to have these massive systems to be able to churn through that data and to be able to make any sort of decision.
This is so ridiculous.
Why?
Because if you know anything about blockchain, it's so much. You're telling me having a spreadsheet that some entity controls and having a distributed system where thousands of computers are deployed to manage this what is a spreadsheet is more efficient. You're smoking crack.
It's not essentially a spreadsheet. It's more like replacing all the computer systems and most of the people that are employed in the financial sector with this system.
Sitch, is it easier to hold a spreadsheet on your personal computer and look at it when people ask you to, or over tens of thousands of computers?
No, I'm going to counter you there. It's not a spreadsheet. You need to nix that entirely. It's not a spreadsheet.
Okay, it's whatever it is. Okay, is this basically?
It's an exchange.
Right. Is this
basically an exchange and a central bank rolled into one?
Is this basically oddly enough, the World Economic Forum argument, where you're basically
part of the other distinction there is that it doesn't, by being distributed in this way and by having the system be cryptographically sound, so we don't have to trust that somebody is executing this code properly.
That's not what I mean.
Verify that they've done it.
What I mean is you're saying it'd be more efficient because instead of having Lehman Brothers has to buy 1,000 computers to compute all this shit, and Bearstein has to buy their own 1,000 computers to compute all this shit. You're saying, all these computers are going to be basically networked together, and they're all going to somehow you can all use this together in unison. That each one can use in unison to create this information, right?
That's how blockchain works. Yes, it's decentralized spreadsheet.
So but okay,
no, so
even if that is more energy efficient, I guess. Even
it's
if that's
not.
Well, but let's say it is. Just say it is.
Okay. Let's pretend we have nuclear fusion.
Regardless,
fusion.
I don't see. To me, this is again just reproducing the system that we have. But I mean, maybe you're saving some electricity at the end of the day or something because it's more energy efficient.
Well, the big point is also that it's uncensorable. Is that by making it distributed, by having this network where anybody can operate a node, we don't have to trust you to run it properly.
Yeah, but some people want their trades private.
Well, no, the trades would be private. He just means like the analyses. But that's the problem too, is that a lot of these companies want their analyses to be private because they want to get a leg up on people.
Let's be clear here is that it's not about producing the analysis. It's about actually executing the financial transactions for a particular market. And the point of having a currency that is tied in with this is that it can just react to what is happening. So as an example, you can have a gold-backed token that as more gold is mined and put in the depository, token is minted and produced. Much more efficient and much more trackable, auditable. And that's part of the main benefit is that anybody can get involved.
Right.
Anybody can execute a transaction. You can choose how much control. Do you want to get down into the guts and start buying individual tokens and trading things back and forth on your own and be that day trading crypto bro? You can. Nobody can stop you. Do you want to just back up and not care and instead just put money into some index fund? You can. There are algorithms, there are systems in place, and it can all be done more efficiently because you can start a business like that. You can handle this by just deploying some code.
Can we get back to the topic now, Sitch? Have you explored this? Now all of a sudden we're talking about investment.
I understand. You're not going to stop whining until we talk about inflation.
We can talk about inflation.
You're the one that made this big claim that you're running from. You're running like a dog with your tail between its legs.
I'm not running away.
Whoa, can we stop talking about inflation, please?
Before we move on to inflation is just, I mean, I don't think anyone would be against having, gold or physical commodities be, tracked in some way in real time via the blockchain in a way that makes it more efficient. I don't think anyone really has a problem with any of that. And I think when we're talking about generally with people's hesitancy with crypto, it really doesn't have anything to do with that. It's more just like, the Bitcoin and Ethereum, all this other stuff being a substitute for money. Essentially, but
and that's what I'm trying to argue here. Okay. Hold on. To get to the inflation, to bridge to that, is I'm trying to present that whole narrative you get on buy your Bitcoin now, the world's going to collapse, and this is going to be the money. This is what you're going to use to transact with. I'm here to say that is bullshit.
Right.
That is not how it's going to work out. That is not realistic. If you know any of the details about Bitcoin, it is not feasible for day-to-day transactions, period.
So then it can't be used as a currency.
I think it's a good prototype. It proves the technology can work. But to your point, Adam, is there isn't an adequate monetary policy attached to it. There is not a factor to expand the money supply, because to fix inflation in this, to add a definition to your point, I would argue fixing inflation is making the inflation, the expansion of the currency and its contraction, more responsive to the market. That's the benefit. It's not doing away with inflation. It's not even necessarily changing that there can be a human interaction on managing the inflation. It's about getting the market signals to be able to either automate that inflation and contraction of the money supply more efficiently, so that it can just do what it needs to do.
Well, let's dive in on that a bit.
To be able to get that information to humans if they need to step in and do something to be able to do so.
Your claim, you came in here and said, look, I got super triggered. You were talking about this stuff and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You can totally make a cryptocurrency that monitors inflation better than the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has done a shit job. Obviously, we've got a lot of inflation going, and I can just write a computer program that will expand and contract the money supply as needed to deal with inflation, so people aren't paying $7 a gallon at the pump. And I'm asking you questions. I'm saying, listen, okay, so let's say we turn the monetary system over to the animated dog. And I say, listen, animated dog, my constituencies are going to throw me out of office because they're tired of paying $7 a gallon for gasoline. So something has to be done here. Make your magic code fix this situation for us and tell me how it does it, how it works. The central bank has done a shitty job because they have political incentives, and your computer model will do better. All right, you have the floor.
And the whole previous conversation was laying out how to get to that point.
Okay, let's hear it.
By having but that's what I'm laying out.
Let's hear it.
Having a is this going to be a bit now, or as
everyone? I want everyone to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I want everyone to close their eyes.
Everyone take a breath.
I want everyone but me. Well, I'm closing my eyes. Everyone close your eyes. Okay. I want you to breathe in slowly. Okay. I want you to breathe in deep, hold it for 4 seconds, and then breathe out. Okay. Everyone take a chill pill. We're all friends here.
Now answer the fucking question.
We all love each other. We all want to hold each other. This is a pursuit of knowledge. Okay. Now.
All right. No Doge in here. No
Okay.
Doging on us.
Okay.
So-
Adam,
so let's be clear.
Adam, I want you to relax.
Okay.
I want you to hit the blunt.
Okay.
I need you to-
Where's my-
okay. You can let Doge answer the
Okay.
question
All right.
and not interrupt him.
World's best
right.
moderator, Sitch. You're
Yes.
doing great.
Thank you.
So thank you. Yes, thank you. That was helpful. So to that point is, let's leave in the Federal Reserve making a human-driven monetary policy decision. Let's not get to immediately changing that. Right now, they're making those decisions by going and getting more information from the market. So they're having to pick a time, the whole time delay thing that we're talking about. They would be able, I propose, to make better decisions if they could just look at the blockchain right now and see, oh, what is the oil token doing? Oh, well, we've got like 10 different companies. They are all producing oil and they are producing their own oil token. We can transparently see the whole chain of how they are producing and trading oil tokens back and forth. And we can just look at the blockchain and see that's exactly what the oil market's doing. Okay, we can go do this with the money. And we can narrow that analysis, make it easier to get that information.
I mean, that already
Now-
exists.
Kind of.
I mean, they have an entire oil futures market to deal with this.
Well,
Yeah.
would it
But
be
again,
helpful?
that's all humans producing that information, putting it in place.
Well,
If it's
that's my question.
directly
That's my
indexed, you
question.
can narrow
How
that.
is your supercomputer going to get that information if humans don't put it in? If the contracts aren't being written by ExxonMobil,
Do you
what?
want? Well, at this point, that is what we are developing and working on. We have various systems called oracles. We have more direct integrations with the actual production facilities to collect that information. Like, also keep in mind, this is still very new. This is all very experimental. That's why I tend to say this is not for most people to get into. We are still figuring out a lot of those
Okay,
details.
so we've
and we're trying to
established
automate what we can. as
we've
we go along.
established that your super algorithm is going to get the same exact information from the already existing systems in place. Okay,
Probably better
your
information.
super algorithm gets the information.
Okay, it's not a super algorithm. It's just a simple measure of what is actually being produced. Okay, very simple to measure that.
How
We can
does it
use that to
expand?
produce a token.
How does what technical
We can use that
process
to
does
produce
it
a token.
use to expand the money supply or contract the money supply to deal with the inflation problem?
Directly, it's two very simple options. You either mint token to the wallet that produced the good or service that is being indexed that warrants expanding the money supply, or you do what's called rebasing, where with a little bit of math tricks, you can credit every holder's balance with a portion of the expansion of the money supply.
So how is
There's
that
a
any
few other
different?
algorithms and systems being invented now.
How is that any different than the U.S. government sending out stimulus checks?
Well, the distinction being is that it can be more directly tied to be responsive to the market, so that you don't need that time delay
So
of humans processing the
pe-
information. And you
people-
don't need the possible infection of some political decision that is not
okay,
terribly helpful to the
let's
market.
let's
and
go
it's just
easy.
self-serving.
Let's go easy on the self-serving political decisions. Okay, let's
But
move
you know
over.
they exist.
Let's move over
Well,
to
but
the
that's
more.
point. No, hold on. No, hold on. I want to make very clear here is you're asking for a value proposition, and you're then negating one of the value propositions that we both agree exists. There is self-serving political influence in the system.
But
And when I say, hey,
you
there's an
haven't
algorithmic
taken
system
you
that can
haven't
minimize
taken
that impact.
you haven't taken any of the political conflict out of the system at all because you're the one that decided who got the tokens.
But no, the algorithm implements it.
So
Is handling that. It is
whoever
now just
programs the
consistently doing
algorithm
that.
decides who gets the tokens. Okay,
Then don't use the algorithm. Go use
doing
another one.
Well, let me ask a question. I think.
Well, no.
Here.
One. Just before you do it, Sitch. Let's go to. So we've we've examined the expanding the money supply part of the equation. Let's go to the more difficult side, the contracting the money supply situation. Right now, we're in a situation where we have a lot of inflation. We need to contract the money supply. The price of gas is not going to go down until we do it. The central bank does this thing. They raise interest rates. You know, there's people debate over whether or not that's effective, how much to do it. But effectively, it's to stifle economic activity. What does the algorithm, how does the algorithm contract the money supply to stop the hyperinflation on gasoline?
We can literally just destroy the digital currency when it's
But
taxed.
so you're taking it out of my wallet?
Well, you want to tax people to contract the money supply under MMT. So I'm not
No,
getting
but,
into the argument
that's-
of whether or not that's a good
please,
idea. I'm just
please
going under
do
your
not-
scenario.
Do not make me bring up the whataboutism counter, okay? I'm asking you.
I'm not doing the whataboutism. I'm bringing up is, I'm telling you right now, you already said you are proposing that the Federal Reserve contract the money supply by taxing people, right?
So, but
Not a whataboutism.
no,
I'm just restating your stance.
I'm
No,
not-
check me on this, please.
I'm asking.
That is
I'm
your
asking
position,
you.
right?
I'm not. This is about your
I'm
position.
trying to make the analogy. I'm trying to make the analogy
No.
of what my position is
So-
and how it would work to what you understand and agree
How
with.
how is the
Because I
algorithm?
don't want to get into a contentious argument.
How is he? Okay, Sitch
I'm
has
trying to answer
Sitch
that, and
has
I'm trying to
50,000
establish common ground to start with.
Sitch has 50,000 Dogecoin. I have
Nice.
10 Dogecoin.
Get fucked.
So we need to contract the money supply. How are you going to tax it? Are you going to tax him 10% and me 10%? Like I'm going to lose one Doge and Sitch is going to lose.
I'm not getting into exactly what the tax policy should be.
So we need a political apparatus to decide this. The algorithm doesn't decide this on its own?
Okay, then how about this one? Previously, I explained how Ethereum worked. That is one algorithm on how to contract the money supply. Oh, you want your transaction to go through faster because we have an auction system for managing the order of transactions being done?
He's running back.
Okay,
He's
you
running
did
back to
more.
the speed thing again. Oh
No,
my
but
God!
this is why I
Would you
said
stop?
this is why I said what I said, which is that I think the speed and the efficiency of the system is the only thing that makes sense to me about what the only possible advantage would be the speed of the information. Because as you know, Adam laid out, which is what I was trying to get at earlier, which is that you're still going to have all these policies that have to be decided by human beings, and they're going to have to be decided by some sort of political apparatus. So it seems like it's basically just a reproduction of the system we have.
Well, that is the other point, is that when you set the monetary policy, you can bake that into the system. So one, it can't be subverted without whatever the oversight process is. Like that's another point here, and I'm sorry I'm triggering you, Adam, whatever.
I'm not.
I'm trying
This is
to
all
remove-
just good fun
Hold
for
on.
me. Okay, I'm not triggered at all.
Okay, so long as we're still friends, I still like you. But that's what I'm getting at here.
Just like me more,
I'm not
okay.
trying, well, a little bit, because you're nice. But I'm trying to get into, I don't necessarily want to get caught up in a debate of what should or shouldn't be happening. Otherwise, we're going to spend all night. I'm going to be trying to argue that MMT is garbage. I don't like it. I don't like the federal government. I don't think the federal government should be making any sort of monetary policy.
Nice.
But
But the algorithm
the technology, but the technology doesn't obviate having that political process and monetary policy.
Okay.
So I'm
okay.
trying to fit the explanation in to say,
Right.
if you want to subvert it, like for example, for my case, I don't like the Fed's monetary policy. I don't want to deal with it. I don't hold fiat longer than it takes for me to pay a bill. I literally just hold crypto. That's all I live off of. And I sell
really?
crypto when I have to pay a bill.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, I
Interesting.
don't have USD longer than it takes for me to pay a bill.
Do you think that could
But-
interfere with your
but I'm not getting into
objectivity a bit?
The fact that I spend my career doing this, the fact that I've like adjusted my entire career to
Right.
work on this, that I've given up high-paying jobs in traditional finance to work on this, yeah, I'm not an objective party. What I'm trying to do
Mhm.
is disconnect what I would like to do with the system and establish some common ground by saying, hey, the technology can be complementary to what you're looking for. And as an example, with your MMT policy, okay, fine. You want to produce money for government spending, and you want to contract the money supply by taxing it. That line of taxation does not go to spending. All right, under that model, as an analogy, we have a very small use case. It's limited, I know. It's a prototype. We are still working on how to expand it out. But right now, we have a very limited example in how the Ethereum gas fee is working. And in that particular case, the monetary policy is, oh, if there's a high demand to use the service, we should contract the money supply. As the service is rendered, we should expand the money supply. So with that very basic monetary policy, we just established, okay, we're just going to bake that into the code. So now as people are transacting, they know what the system's going to do at any given moment. And that algorithm can respond. The exact amount that is used to contract, the exact contraction of that, of, oh, you want to pay a fee, we metaphorically have a sales tax on that, and that tax is just going to get destroyed. It's just going to remove from circulation entirely. We can just apply that on any transaction. If instead you wanted to say, oh, we just want to have a blanket income tax collected yearly, okay, we have other algorithms that can be applied. If we use other currencies, other tokens for that, we can just adjust the token supply. We can say, yes, if the policy is 10% tax on current holdings or 10% tax on average holdings, we can denominate that in a token, and we can just literally, like, he's got 10,000, okay, we'll take 1,000. You've got 10, okay, we'll take 1. I'm not getting into what that policy should be, but it can be more transparently and efficiently executed with the technology.
Is this why a lot of the crypto people are so upset by the US creating, talking about creating a digital dollar? Because essentially they could do everything that you're saying, just completely work with under the same political framework and the same framework that we have right now, just would be with the digital US dollar.
Yeah, this is exactly
Yes.
why the
And-
Fed is going to do a digital dollar.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would be able to more directly control your spending.
If they
That's the
wanted,
other
if they
problem.
chose to. I'm
Yes,
not
if
sure
they wanted
there
to.
would be a political, I hope there
You're
would
right.
be a political animus to do that.
Sitch, would you?
And that's
Sitch,
the
this is-
fear that the rest of us are having.
This is what he's advocating for, but not saying it. And this
What?
is kind of why I was going the direction I was,
Tell me.
because
Read the mind.
how triggered do you think the chat is going to be when when your dollars literally tax themselves, when you don't file an income tax return, but the dollars
But
tax themselves as you spend?
Well, how is that any?
But that's
not
the point.
really. I mean, people might get mad at that, but it's not really different than what we have. I mean, it'd just be more convenient, right?
Well, I think
Exactly.
so. Yeah, do you think I never want to file another income tax return? Like, I would love this.
Well-
This is why I think this is a good idea, but you got to have the
but that's
central
but that would
bank
be
to
the other
do
point.
it.
But that would be the other point, is that by having currencies for specific markets that are tuned specifically for that market, businesses can transact a lot easier. The systems can be designed so that they don't have to be part of this digital dollar thing. There can be other options. So guys like you that are perfectly fine with what is going on there and are perfectly happy to get the USD tokens and take part in the USD market, go right ahead. I don't want to. I will go over somewhere else. I will go to another digital asset or several. I will acquire those. And there has to be some channel to get from one to the other. Like before Bitcoin was traded on exchanges, you were still able to trade it.
I'm
there
curious
will be
what's
a
the point
mechanism for
that
me
you're
to
making?
get USD and the point being is it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Well, no,
Right.
are you
The
saying that you're not going to
technology will
use?
benefit both sides.
You're not really
Right.
answering the question about dollars that tax themselves.
No,
Are
he's
you-
saying that the US would have their own version that people could use, and there'd be the private version. that people
Right,
could
but
use.
the private version wouldn't tax itself, Sitch. That's the thing.
Well, no, it would. I
It
mean,
would have,
he's saying Ethereum taxes
if that's what's
itself,
appropriate.
right?
Yeah,
He's saying
Ethereum taxes itself.
if that's appropriate.
Well, but that's
Yes.
yeah, but that's part of the
That's not
equation.
appropriate in every sector.
And
Yeah, it's not appropriate in every
Ethereum
sector to tax at that point.
Ethereum is taxing itself in transactions. It's not taxing itself to fight inflation. It has no input that has to do with inflation
that's
at
the point.
all.
No, but that's the point there. That's the algorithm, is that it is taxing itself in respect to how much people want to execute a transaction. The idea being that as people are using the system,
you don't understand.
people are mining
with all due respect,
I-
you don't really understand what we're talking about here.
Well, no, it isn't. Okay, my understanding would be it is an anti-inflation mechanism because I'm assuming the algorithm not only figures out how many transactions are being made with Ethereum, but also how much is being mined and how much exists.
It's anti-inflationary on the transaction cost. It's
Yeah, but
not
isn't it-
anti-inflationary on whatever you're buying.
What do you mean?
Well, if I'm
That's the-
buying
okay, no,
if
no,
I'm
no, no,
buying
but that's-
gasoline,
hold on, no,
gasoline
but
is
that's what I'm
sold
getting at.
via supply and
but
demand.
That's a very important. But that's a very important point that we were missing here.
Okay.
That we've been brushing over is that
I'm not
it
missing it.
is
I keep trying to get back to it.
well, no, you keep glossing over it. Is that in this case, I've made the point that in the example of using Ethereum, it's not trying to stabilize its price
Right.
to USD. It is not trying to stabilize its price to buying gas. It's trying to stabilize its price for
itself.
executing transactions
See,
on
Sitch?
Ethereum. That's all it cares about.
Sitch? This is exactly what I'm talking
Okay,
about.
no, so-
It's not
okay.
fighting inflation. It's not doing what the central bank is set up to do.
Right.
It's doing
Not
something
yet. I'm
completely
sorry.
different.
Give us like 5 or 10 years, okay?
Well, okay, well,
it's new. We're
Okay,
inventing shit.
So what Cody said, and what he said from the beginning, was that Ethereum is not in the example. It's fighting inflation towards itself. It's not fighting inflation towards some physical
Transaction fees is what
that
it's fighting
exists.
inflation
Okay.
for.
But
right.
Yep.
So, but
Let me
it's
finish.
not designed to do that, and it would only make the only way it could do that would be if it is the central currency that is being traded for that commodity. Otherwise, there'd be no way in which to fight inflation that's caused by some commodity or physical thing, right?
yes.
Correct.
Okay.
And so, as an example, to extrapolate that, consider then, as I said,
Mhm.
it's fighting inflation in its own market with itself. Okay. Now, we have a proof of concept that it is possible to work out an algorithm for a very specific market. Now, if you aggregate that together across multiple markets, and then you had you want a US digital currency, fine, we'll have a US digital currency. That system could then more effectively respond to all the little tokens that are tuned exactly for their market. Maybe one has a tax, maybe one has an inflation rate, maybe one has a deflation rate, maybe one is combining those together, maybe one's minting tokens to a particular address,
Well,
maybe
mhm.
one is just rebasing, expanding or contracting the supply for everyone, and they can have a asset that is doing similarly. They can have the political influence on that, and they can have that option of, hey, we want to have our algorithm automatically respond to the market for these commodities, these portions of the asset, and then we still want the ability to insert the human oversight on that and give money to banks and loan it out or whatever. All of that can exist, and I'm asserting that it would all be complementary.
Right. So basically, if I understand correctly, you're saying, like using gas as an example, that all large companies and gas companies, they would be trading in some very specific gas token currency, and that
Several
currency would have its own algorithm to sort of try to create price stability based on that token, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I understand that. I guess what I would see the issue with that is that I don't think they would ever want to do that because, I mean, as part of OPEC's power is that they can control the price of gas. So they would never hand
Okay.
that power over to like an algorithm.
Okay, I'm not going to name names necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
but people I am doing business with literally got back from a conference in Dubai like a month or two ago, where literally Dubai leadership, their royal family, is meeting with blockchain developers to do exactly that.
No, but they're not. They're not going to. No, they're not going to hand over. No, you don't understand. They're not going to hand over
I'm telling you, I am privy to the meetings where they want to do this.
Not being privy to anything, I can bet you $1 million that the Saudi royal family will never, ever, in the history of the human existence until gas is worthless, give up their ability to control gas prices to a token or an algorithm. They probably want to use this technology to make things more efficient, to make things more, easy to have these transactions. But they're not going to have an algorithm that prevents them from controlling the prices of gas.
But right now, they're controlling the prices by whether or not they even sell the oil.
Right.
There's nothing that can be done about that. There's no way you can force anybody to sell anything.
Right. Okay. So, but that's what I'm getting. That's why I don't understand how the gas token would actually solve the problem, I guess.
Unfortunately, it would just make it a lot easier for anyone who doesn't want to do that to take part in the market.
Yeah, but they all do, though. That's.
I believe we've had a war and a policing action very recently that involved two countries that were trying to sell oil not in USD.
Okay. Oh, okay. But wait a minute. So
yeah.
Well, but what you're saying, but then if that's the case, so if you're saying like, oh, but this will open up the market for like Russia, right, to sell their oil,
or all kinds of people,
right? No one would allow this system to even exist at all.
Well, that's one of the hurdles that we're fixing with the technology, is making it
a big hurdle.
Decentralized. Well, that's where the decentralization comes in. So you can't go snuff out a market, and that's where the uncensorability comes in.
Well, no, they don't need to. It's way no, they don't need to. It's way easier than that. They say, oh, let's say hypothetically you're gonna have the Doge market, okay? The Doge market's gonna say, look, you can trade oil or oil tokens or whatever. On this market, fuck the sanctions that the US and Europe and all these other countries put on. If Russia wants to sell in this market, everything's free. Everyone can sell in this market. Okay. So then the US government and Europe says, oh, really? Okay. Well, now no one can trade that currency for our currency.
Okay.
So you can only trade in rubles or something else. Like this is just going to spiral out into like
that's
like a currency war.
Okay, so what you're hitting on is there's predominantly two strategies in crypto development. There's the poison pill and there's the strangulation. They're kind of working in concert. Is you're hitting on that adopting the technology at all makes it pretty much makes it impossible from a technical standpoint to block the use of the technology anywhere else. So if to be honest, I kind of want the Fed to adopt a digital dollar, so then they can't just block all blockchain transaction on the internet. Like, it's not feasible to do that in the first place, realistically. We could spend forever talking about the technicalities. But if they have to adopt the technology, then the technology has to exist in the financial sector, which means that you can always run around creating new networks, spawning networks in other parts of the world, creating attachments to the network elsewhere, so that it becomes damn near impossible to actually crush it. So yeah, you can attack it at various points. You could go after a particular data center that's running part of the network, but you wouldn't be able to get all of it. And so that's going to slowly strangle it and kind of force the hand of, well, we bought oil futures with oil tokens in this decentralized market. The tanker is coming across the ocean to deliver that. Your only choice now is to exert force to block the tanker delivering that oil. So it's also kind of forcing the hand of,
which
like,
they could do
you actually want to go to war over this? And the premise being is that if you can build up enough of an economy and get enough of adoption fast enough, then it won't be feasible it would actually be mutually assured destruction. Fine, you exert force, you go block the tanker, it can't deliver. Well, now we set up a whole cascade event that's going to destroy your economy. Do you really want to do that?
Though. That's the problem. Well, there's two issues here, which would be, first of all, with the digital dollar, I assume they could program the digital dollar to never be able to be switch the hypothetical Dogecoin for the digital dollar if the Dogecoin goes to war with the digital dollar.
They can't, because ultimately the digital dollar has to go to a human, and that human can hold another asset, and that human can use their own solution. Like right now, we already, as much as Bitcoin, just as an example, to give you a concrete example.
No, but it's like saying, like, okay, I'm going to buy a painting. I'm going to buy a painting, to do some illegal transaction, right? Like, I'm not buying the drugs. I'm buying this painting for $50,000, right? But with a digital dollar, tracking all this stuff is going to be like 1,000 times easier. And so suddenly the government's just going to be like, oh, it's really suspicious that you bought, whatever that's obviously, you're violating the Dogecoin sanction, and then you get arrested.
Wow. I guess there's less and less value in holding this digital dollar, and I should just go do business in some other currency that's not going to block me like that. Yeah, but I guess we're just going to slowly strangle it out. Now we're getting a little bit into goals and such. So far I was accepting this idea.
This is the two issues, because at the end of the day, everyone's got to pay taxes for whatever country they live in. So they can't just say, I'm not going to fucking engage in the USD or whatever European country is also sanctioning Russia. And then the second part of that is, if all the US markets and the European markets say we're sanctioning Russia, you can't buy Russian oil. And then you have the Doge market that says, oh, well, you still can trade oil, whatever. And people in US and in North America and Europe try to, make these transactions via that. The US government just says, oh, well, we're just going to blockade the oil. And then the Dogecoin collapses, because the problem is it doesn't actually have a physical force that's giving it power, that's mandating transactions are actually valued.
And that's where I'm asserting that fifth generation warfare actually makes it that economic power is a weapon in and of itself. That by tying this oil token into a business-to-business economy, to where there are other services. So it's like, okay, look, this oil token, this tanker's coming across the ocean. You want to enforce the sanction. You want to block the tanker. Okay, well, this token is an oil future. There's a bunch of airlines. There's a bunch of gas station companies. They all want that oil. They have that token. They've taken out loans. They've tied other financial structures to that token. There are banks that are bought into this. They have assets that have bundled up this token with other things. And so you get this strange bedfellows scenario. It's a legal term you get this strange bedfellows scenario where suddenly you might be doing things that people don't like trading oil with Russia. And people might not give a shit about what you're doing, or may actually be happy if you were crushed. But you've now set up this economic nuke planted in the system that if you block that oil shipment, this whole house of cards built on this oil token collapses. Now, yes, I am presenting the goal of what many of us are trying to build out these systems, get the adoption to build these things, so that if that event actually comes, or it is proposed, okay, we need to exert force on physical reality to now break the digitized algorithmic system. Okay, if you do that, this economic nuke is going to go off, because we've got enough adoption throughout the rest of the financial sector that you're going to tear it down. And thus you're going to get strange bedfellows of Lehman Brothers coming in and going, no. You don't, we're going to lobby you to not go do that. Don't fucking stop that oil shipment. Do you have any idea what it's going to do to all the financial instruments we've built up? And some of them depend on that oil shipment coming in. Right. So now the politics can be turned to our advantage.
So basically, like, what you're saying is you have this Dogecoin that's deciding to subvert the Russian oil sanctions. But the issue, and it has all these other markets and all these other things. So, there's a lot of financial investments from a lot of private industry into this. But basically what would happen would be, the US says we're sanctioning Russian oil, Europe says we're sanctioning Russian oil, Dogecoin says we're not sanctioning Russian oil. Fuck you.
Mhm.
And then the US says, "Oh, we're gonna go to war with Dogecoin, whatever that means." So first of all these institutions are going to be doing everything they can to dump Dogecoin. So the price of Dogecoin is just going to fucking plummet
All right.
because everyone's afraid of. They know the U.S. government can do something physical. The Dogecoin can't. And the threat of what you're saying is that, yes, this will hurt the economy. It could hurt the economy a lot. But at the end of the day, no lobbying will ever stop the U.S. government from pressing that button, from blowing up Dogecoin. It won't. It never will, because what you're essentially saying is, oh, the United States of America, the U.S. fucking A, the world police. You're saying that they're going to give up their political power over creating world policy and their economy.
I'm not saying they're going
to like
hold
a
on.
random fucking
under this. All right. So under this, consider.
No, but that is what you're
about
saying.
Them giving up power. I presented two scenarios: a poison pill and a strangulation. That doesn't sound like
they sound like great options.
Wait, whoa. If I'm sitting in my room and I'm doing something and I consent to someone sitting behind me and to hold the gun at my head, and they're saying, "Hey, if we ever have a disagreement, I can shoot you in the back of the head," I'm giving up power to the person behind me, and that's essentially what you're suggesting the Dogecoin situation would create.
And I'm asserting that is what already exists currently in the economy.
With what?
We already have. Jesus.
No. It exists.
A lot of the wars have been predicated on a massive economic influence.
Yes.
And a lot of them have been directed based on that economic influence.
Yes.
And in a lot of cases, it's used to perpetuate a war. But there are also plenty of cases where you'd look at the situation and say, there should probably be a war here. Like this world police thing, what's going on? There should probably be a war here.
No, but
why isn't there?
Why?
It's not economically viable.
When there's when you say a war is predicated on some sort of economic situation or circumstances, okay? It's because you have two countries that have differing economic or different things that would benefit their economic situation. And thus they can't resolve them. So they physically go to war to resolve this situation. Okay.
Yes.
So I agree with you. The problem is Dogecoin doesn't have an army, and it's relying on soft power entirely. And the US government and most other countries' governments are never going to cede the kind of power you're suggesting to this decentralized force. They're going to say, fuck you. And they're going to crack down on it, and they're going to use their hard power.
To make that analogy then, what is the one military strategy that has consistently won against a superior force?
The insurrection strategy.
No, the guerrilla strategy.
But that's the same thing.
That's what I'm referring to. But
fine. Yes. So in our case here, in executing an economic warfare, we are taking the guerrilla strategy. Okay, we're going to go attack Doge market.
I understand.
Okay, where? How? What's the target?
Here's the problem. I understand what you're saying. You're like, oh, you're going to have the FBI raid people's servers or try to write hacking code or whatever to actually destroy the physical market. They don't need to do that. They just need to stop whatever the physical goods that are being traded. Because the Dogecoin only has value as long as it has value, as long as it's being traded accordingly.
But that's what I'm getting at is if you can get the adoption and you can tie this into the economic system and make it such that
they're going to push the
financial
button every time.
Oh, okay. And then you have, but they don't consistently. That's my point.
The situation that you're putting forward has never happened before.
There's never been a case of some reason, some ideological reason to go to war, or that has not been held up by.
You're saying the United States of America is going to give up its sovereignty to a
No, no,
decentralized power.
No. All right, so let's recontextualize that. In this case, I'm fine with there being a digital dollar. So in this case, they're not giving up their sovereignty.
They are,
They
because you're
are.
circumventing their sanctions.
We're looking at tying the financial system in so that the sanctions don't even get considered as a possibility.
That's circumventing the United States' sovereignty.
It's changing the conditions under which they would make the decision to make it such that the sanction isn't even a consideration.
I understand that, and you could call it whatever you want, but I'm telling you,
but that's what
Uncle Sam isn't going to stand for.
No.
Okay, how about it's giving them sovereignty over the US digital dollar and how it ties in with the oil market, and thus giving them a soft power force to exert over Russian oil. Because they can go into the market, they can start trading, playing on the market all they want. If people want to sell the oil token for USD, they can mint a crap ton of USD, and they can start buying up and tying up all of that oil. They can start limiting the production somewhere. So that's what I'm getting at is it's not necessarily going to work out as they keep losing power. It's about they will be able to integrate at various points. It's just, it'll be easier to disassociate. And now I think we're into a disagreement on worldview that I'm not sure we're really going to have time to get into.
It's not. What I'm saying is not. I'm giving no prescription here. I'm giving zero moral prescription. Okay. I'm only describing what will happen. Why did the rest of the world give up their sovereignty to start using USD as the reserve currency? They did.
Please.
They did.
Why?
Because the United States has the best hard power.
Well, and not only that,
stable financial.
Not only that, we have a central bank that's focused on price stability.
Right. It seems to be the most central. It's the most stable fiat currency.
Yes.
Okay.
It hasn't been stable for a while.
Look, you're laughing.
Wait.
You're laughing, but that is exactly the reason that they denominate these contracts in USD. Because as a business owner, I don't want to buy 5,000 barrels of oil in US dollars and have the price of the US dollar plunge before I can turn around and sell the oil.
Right.
But that's the point. When you sign the futures contract, you've already spent the money.
Yes.
No, but you don't. It's not just for anything.
So you're getting rid of USD. You're shorting USD and longing oil.
No, wait. For what Adam's saying is that's
what happens when you buy an oil future with USD. You're divesting yourself from USD and you're acquiring oil.
That's not what Adam's saying. Adam is saying that whenever any transaction is made, okay, you want to make sure that you're getting worthwhile currency and not useless bits of paper.
Yes.
Right? When you make a transaction with someone. And so someone might say, hey, I want to do this transaction in the ruble. And they say, well, I don't know what the fuck the ruble is going to be worth a week from now, but I'm pretty confident that the USD is going to be worth the same in a week from now. So they do it based on the USD.
Yes,
that's always said.
Exactly.
And so my point is that and I assume that you would agree, there are, if I, an idiot on the internet, okay, could figure this out from what you're saying, I assume that there's very smart techno bros in the United States government that would understand the potential of what you're talking about. And I just don't see how they would ever even let it come to pass to have this
there's already
threat
talk of a
against
digital
them.
dollar. That's the point. There already is this talk of a digital dollar. They're already talking about adopting the technology.
Yeah, but
and
not the way I can almost guarantee you it's not going to have this opening that you're talking about.
But that's what I'm getting at is so long you can't outlaw math, and it's not feasible to attack the whole network. So if they adopt the technology in any way, however bad that implementation might be, it's not feasible then. It's absolutely impossible to block the use of the technology anywhere else. And you're right. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out if it does come to a government exerting force on the physical supply chain to disrupt the economy. I hypothesize that given certain events in history and how certain wars have started or not been started based on economic interest, that will hopefully be applicable to trying to get the technology adopted, that it would be able to build up to a point that potentially there's some lobbyists, there's some backroom calls, and somebody says, hey, no, seriously, don't fucking do that. Do you have any idea what it's going to do to our economy? And I don't mean, when I say set off a nuke, I mean like a straight up economic nuke. Like, no, you don't understand. You block that shipment, and in 2 years, we are Mad Max, okay? Don't fucking do that. It's a hypothesis. It's a maybe. I'm not sure it's going to happen, but I would rather spend my time trying to build the technology that could possibly force that hand than be a coomer or make a ton of money in some financial sector. So again, we're starting to get into an area of, it's a hypothesis. It's what I like to see. Not sure, but you know what? I will die happy if at some point somebody can, like, for their kids' bar mitzvah, mint them a trust fund NFT that will set them up for life.
Okay, well, listen, that's based. I mean, I really like your attitude.
Let's read some super chats and move on. What do you say? Because there's some super chats here on this. So for Become the Knight for $20. Thank you so much. We had Become the Knight on the other day, and we had a real good talk about this kind of stuff. So for Coyote, do you know how Bitcoin solves the problem of scarce coins? Once they are all mined, who validates the transactions? Without this solution, it seems like there could be unhealthy coin minting explosions.
It solves it because it's baked into the math that you can't have more than 21 million Bitcoin.
Right, but who does the work once you run out of minting Bitcoins is what he's asking.
And that's what I'm getting at, is the hypothesis with Bitcoin is that by the time the minting stops, there will be enough adoption and therefore enough transactions that the transaction fees alone will be enough for the miners. I'm not sure it's going to work out. Personally, I think you need inflation and deflation.
So they're getting paid a fee, but how do they get paid the fee if they don't get paid in new Bitcoin?
By the transaction fee that it takes to transfer Bitcoin.
So the person pays the fee. So basically, every transaction is like a Western Union.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Steel Wrath for 10. Oh wait, that's not.
Wait a minute, you forgot one. Hurl, hey, for 2,000 NGN says, Coyote, how are you doing this? Don't tell me you're an actual coyote.
Well, there's some cool software, and things get a little complicated when you're a 6-dimensional intelligence.
Nice.
I gotta figure out
projecting yourself into a 4-dimensional space to be perceivable and understandable by 3-dimensional entities.
Sweet. I like how the dog mouth moves when you talk. It's pretty awesome. Joe the Mig for member for 2 months says, Adam.
Wait a minute, Adam. You gotta take the El Salvador things off the screen.
Oh, you don't like that?
No.
Well, how do you think these bondholders feel when they're not going to get their 38 million back?
Listen, we are the Good Faith podcast. Okay, we're not Brianna Joy Gray. We're not the Bad Faith podcast.
I mean, we're a little bad faith.
No, maybe you are. S-class.
You're teasing.
Come on, we're having fun here. Okay. So Joe the Mig for member for 2 months. Oh,
okay. Yeah.
Says Adam, the Fed missed the mark on inflation by nearly a year and is playing catch up in an even worse system. The problem is, and I did a talk with Econo Boy where we went into this a bit. If you want to listen to that talk, a lot of people really like that talk. Oh, you didn't like it? Okay.
I will happily have a talk with some point about Econo Boy, but I think we're gonna have a lot of differences.
Let me
answer the question though. Joe the Mig. Let me answer the Joe the Mig question here. So the problem is, and I don't necessarily know how you deal with this problem because the inflation wasn't caused by the Fed. Okay, The inflation was caused by government spending and a contraction of the supply chains. So the Fed really only has one tool, interest rates, to control the inflation. But if the government spends too much money, that one tool is not going to do the job. So I like blaming this on the Fed, I don't necessarily know is the right place to place the blame. The blame is really on the government for doing too much spending for the Fed to be able to handle the inflation. Do you agree with that, Sitch, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
Do you agree with that, Coyote?
I think that's a roundabout way of saying the politicians decided to print more money, and they told the Fed to go print more money. So I could say that in shorter words by saying the Fed caused inflation by printing more money.
Yeah, there's two ways money is created, spending and lending. And the government spent... Just let me finish, okay? There's two ways that money is injected in the system. There's two ways that currency is injected into the system, spending and lending. And the government spent all of this money, and interest rates are supposed to somewhat control lending. So the idea is that if the Fed raises interest rates, that's going to slow people from taking out loans and like slow the flow of money into the economy out. The only way to take money out of the system is for people to pay back loans that they've already taken, student loans for one, or to tax people, tax the money away. You understand that, Sitch, right?
Yes.
So the only tool that the Fed has is that they can raise interest rates and prevent people from taking out more loans. But that's not going to stop the spending that's already went out, right? That's already out there. The only way to shrink the money supply is taxation. You think Biden is going to raise taxes?
No.
Yeah, of course not. He's like, I want to spend more money because gasoline prices are so high. I need to send you checks to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So how about this one? What if?
How do you? What is your
dollar,
first of all? What is your?
Want to tax money?
Enough of the crypto. Okay, tell me your. tell me why you scoff at currency being created through spending and lending. Is there some secret third option that I don't know about?
Well, first off, when you're saying currency injection and supply, lending doesn't inject currency into circulation. The spending does. The lending makes the currency liquid and available for spending.
If
taking the autistic hat off for a moment.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
By spending it though, it's not created. It's created at the minting press. So the mint's creating the currency.
Whatever.
It's then going. But you're getting very specific here. You're saying
let's move back. That's because you're wrong and you're totally twisting words around to try to make yourself right.
No, I'm not.
You are completely wrong. You are completely incorrect.
I don't understand the distinction that they made here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How does I'm just being more accurate so I can get into the details?
No, I mean I literally don't understand what you guys are even arguing about.
How does what are
you saying that when I spend $1, I somehow created a dollar?
Not you.
Yet I don't have access to the printing press to
create.
See, you're not even following the conversation.
Talking about the government.
Yeah,
no, I am. So no, that's what I'm getting at.
This is why we laugh when you scoff at us because you're not following along. You don't understand the conversation.
Okay, let Cody.
Wow. Whoa. Okay.
Finish.
Chill. That's why I'm being very specific with the wording. Is that you're saying spending is
and lending
creating currency.
Yes.
Well, that's what I was being clear on is, all right, let's be very specific. The lending is not expanding the currency supply.
Yes, it is.
The lending is making it liquid.
What are you talking about?
Adam. What is lending, Adam? You say lending.
Look, if I go to the bank and I say, listen, I want to buy this awesome house, okay? It's $4 million. I would like a loan for $4 million. The bank creates the $4 million, credits my bank account, and I go buy the house. I now owe the bank the $4 million plus interest. When I pay that loan back, that money is deleted from existence, okay? I'm sure Doge over here thinks that we're still on the fractional reserve banking system, but we're
No.
not. We've gone through this before.
I didn't. One, don't put words in my mouth, okay?
Okay.
No.
So how does that lending process, Doge, not create money?
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
The whole
is,
point. The whole point
as
of
you just
Sitch,
established.
Let me
No,
let me
hold on.
let me
As you
let me
just-
talk to Sitch here. Sitch is following along. I can see. Sitch.
Yeah.
So when the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, what are they trying to do? Why would raising interest rates? Why would that?
Trying to get you to stop.
They're trying to get me to
lend-
stop borrowing money
Borrowing
and
money, yeah.
expanding the money supply. Right?
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Does it all make logical sense now?
Yes.
Why
so
you
yes,
would?
I understand that. Right. So
Okay.
so Doge,
Okay,
you're quibbling
do you
with
know what
Adam
settlement
saying
is?
that
Well,
you have a problem
I'm-
with Adam saying that process of lending creates money, right?
Because I want to get down to the details of what is happening behind the scenes. Like, for example,
Okay.
do you know what settlement is?
No.
Let's not go there.
Okay.
Okay. It's totally
So,
irrelevant
well,
to
no,
the
but
conversation. He's just
You're
he's
asking-
totally
you're-
wrong,
no, 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 hold on.
and he's
No,
trying to
no, no.
Let me
he's
just
trying to
let me-
point to this
let me-
like little
let me-
nitpicky
let-
thing.
Let's hear him out.
Coded.
Let's hear him
Dude,
out, Adam.
I've designed and coded banking systems that do exactly this. I know it literally how it works because I had to write the code
Well, is this-
to
wait,
make
the
what you're
code
talking
for-
about happen.
Before we continue, is this literally just Sitch's law? Is this literally just kind of quibbling over the definition of lending?
It's exactly what he's trying
That's
to
what
do
I'm
because
asking.
he's wrong and he doesn't want to say, "Oh,
It's not
you're
about
right,
being
Adam.
wrong.
I was
He could
totally
just-
incorrect."
He could just have a very specific term he wants to use that you're not using.
Do you want to go over the spending
not
one
that I
now?
have a
Do you
specific
want to go
term.
over? You want to
Yes.
go over how the spending creates money?
No, let's
expands the
stop.
money
I'm trying to be
supply
more
now.
I'm trying to be
Fucking
more
God.
granular
Okay.
in the discussion.
Without interrupting Adam.
Okay, I won't interrupt. I promise.
Doge, what is wrong with what he laid out with lending? Why is that not creating money?
Because ultimately, what has been created? Yes, the banks are allowed to just credit your account with money, but that crediting of your account is a debt that they have to settle. They have to settle that by going through all the transactions with all the other banks and working out who actually owes who how much money. When they get to the end, if there's a deficit, they are borrowing that from the Fed.
And
Yeah,
what?
so
How does the
yes,
Fed get the money?
That is by crediting it to the banks. So they
No,
are
no,
also
a little
just,
louder, a little louder. They create it. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, let's
Yeah,
not be.
so that's
let's not
my
be
point.
mean. Let's not be.
So
mean.
that's what I'm getting at is I'm being very precise. I'm trying to make it more granular.
Well, why do people
In that-
Sitch? Why do people scoff when they're wrong? Usually, when I'm scoffing, it's because I'm
Adam,
right.
Adam, please. Coyote Doge is a friend
As
of the
I said,
channel.
But he's
Okay,
scoffing
relax.
at us.
granular.
Okay, well, let's just
Yeah,
relax.
because we're being
Just
fun.
relax.
We're having fun, dude.
Just relax.
Relax.
Everyone, chill. Okay, so
I'm not saying you're wrong.
You
Exactly.
did
I'm saying
literally.
that
Okay,
scoffing
clip the
advice that Adam was
stream.
wrong.
He said
I'll be saying.
he did literally
it's a
say I
joke.
was
It's a
wrong.
comedy show.
Okay,
It's a
fine, fair enough.
comedy
Okay.
show.
We can move on.
He
This is
literally
Sit-
said
this
lending
is-
does not create money.
Right.
He
So this is-
literally
It makes it
said
more
that.
liquid. No. That's the point. Is it
You
makes
said
it more liquid.
Right.
That is the distinction.
There, no,
In
this
that
is
the
bullshit.
money is not
this is
cre-
complete
the money
and
is
utter
not
bullshit.
created
from a
until the
layperson's
settlement.
perspective, does that
bullshit.
matter? Really? I guess.
Well, I did come on here and say that I'm a technical engineer and I'm here
Okay,
to talk
I
some
understand.
tech. So
Right.
I'm getting
I
very
understand.
technical on the point here.
I understand.
And I'm getting into an example of
No, you're
what
just
we're
you're
trying to make more
wrong.
efficient.
You're,
No,
it's
no, no,
okay.
no, no.
We
No, no, no.
forgive you. We forgive
it's
you.
literally-
I've agreed with you that yes, it does, but there's a few more steps.
Right.
And those extra steps are very, very important to understand what is going on.
They're very
and
important
how
to
the system might be
complicate the
improved.
matter so it appears
No,
that you're
listen.
not
It's
wrong.
a complicated
but-
matter.
Let's all be good faith here. Okay. You're both right, Adam, from a lay perspective or from the general perspective
We're
that
not
we're talking
both
about.
right,
Wait,
Sitch.
from the general perspective. Okay, you're absolutely right. But there's probably some very weird, technical, highly specific way where it's
Sitch.
like, well,
No,
technically,
Sitch is
if
just
I
trying
look
to-
into the exact system, it's
Sitch
not
is
quite
just trying to be the
Okay.
peacemaker here.
Well, no, that's what
You want to go?
I guess
You want to go through the spending one now?
Yeah.
What I guessed happens. Okay.
No, let's not. Let's not.
I'm
We're almost
a big-brained psychic.
Okay.
I
No,
think
we can
I
go
think
into the
we've
spending
answered.
one.
I think we've answered Joe the Meg's question. Contrast for
Okay.
$2 says Adam is an economist as AA is an academic. JK, that's right.
Yeah.
Contrast. You better put that JK there.
Nice.
Well, it might be true given that he's not actually employed in academia anymore.
That's true.
Ooh, okay, so all right, you just won my heart over, Doge. White.
See, now
there
you're
you
both
go.
amateurs just spouting off online.
All you got to do
to
make friends with someone is attack a mutual enemy.
Yeah,
Okay,
bond over
so
quackademic
simple.
agent.
Yes.
Oh God.
So White for $1.99 says, I trust algorithms even less than I trust the government. Which I completely agree there.
One Abaddon, thank you so much for being a fuel seeker for 2 months. Says, I have no idea what's going on. Why is there a rags imposter talking about crypto? Whatever the argument is, Adam is probably right. A team reigns supreme.
I've been a Doge online longer than Rags has been alive.
Wow.
Really?
That's a bold claim. I don't know how old Rags is.
Yeah.
I was online in the 80s.
Wow.
I didn't even know there was an online in the
Yeah.
80s. Holy cow.
There
Were
there wasn't a web. There was just Usenet, Telnet, IRC, various shells. It wasn't until 93 that HTTP came out and the web started taking off. I actually was kind of a fool then. I thought Gopher was going to beat out HTTP. I was dumb.
I don't even know what Gopher is. But so were you like
Exactly.
the guy that invented the Pong? You saw little military pings going back and forth. Like, it's like a game.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not that old. I was a kid
Yeah.
back then.
Yonkers OF for 31 Australian. Thank you, Yonkers. Says, Adam, are you refusing to be good faith on purpose? Why so bitter, son? Get in control of the reins. You're stampeding. S-Class is a truth-seeking merchant.
He's intimidated because I'm prettier than he is.
All this was in good fun.
You have nicer fur.
It
so
is.
I'll give you that.
All of this is in
It
good
is.
fun. So
Right.
no
I still
hate
like
here.
it.
No hard feelings.
Nothing but love. Okay.
has
Ron
been fun.
Quay for $10 says, sounds like it works like private planes. My old boss explained it to me because he has a jet. You buy units, which are crazy expensive. Then parts and fuel are priced in units. There you go.
Interestingly enough, we actually have a private jet token.
Nice.
Wow.
I want to get one of those.
Maybe someday.
Sir Lags a lot for $5 says, if we were ever in a position to lose our hegemony, we would invade Venezuela tomorrow.
And I think that was with
I agree with that. Yeah.
the things that I brought up. Of course we would. Yeah.
Ostracy for $10 says, Adam, I hate your defense of the Fed. You construct an argument where the Fed is not to blame when inflation is high because of government spending, then say they are responsible when prices are stable.
Well, this is the whole argument that's going on. I mean, the Fed is telling Congress, "Hey, your overspending is irresponsible, but they're going to do what they're going to do." The whole idea behind the Fed was to remove
to a
politics
point here.
from it.
This is
Go ahead.
See, that's the point here, is that this is another point on the granularity that it's both kind of right. Through the chain of events of the Senate influencing the Fed, giving directives on government spending, saying where the government wants to borrow money, the Fed giving that feedback on, okay, the government wants to borrow this much money, the banks need to borrow this much money, our analysis says the interest rate should be this. They're trying to set up that to steelman your point, they're trying to set up that somewhat impartial point in the middle of, okay, government, we know you need money, and we know you can just tell us to give you money, and we know you've told us to give these chartered banks money. So the check on all of that is we're going to adjust this interest rate. So if you're gonna yell at somebody at Adam on like, you're gonna say the Fed isn't doing it, that's where you need to get granular. It's like, yeah, the Fed's kind of doing it, but they're also doing it in response to what the Senate's doing. and the Senate's doing stuff in response to what the banks are doing. The banks
Doge,
are doing stuff in response to what the Fed and the Senate are doing.
Right.
Can you
can't say any one party is entirely to blame.
Doge, can you lay out the situation just so we know that you understand what we're talking about? Because when you reply like that, it makes me feel like you don't really understand.
Cody Dodge has been on the internet since 1980.
Well, I understand he knows. I know he understands the internet stuff, but it doesn't appear that he understands the reality of the economics.
What don't you understand? What?
Well, I just.
But how is that wrong?
Right.
Well, the money supply is grows via spending or lending, exactly like I said. So if the government, if the Congress writes up a bill that they're going to spend $50 trillion, okay, they decide they're going to give every single American like $2 million, okay? Do you think the Fed raising interest rates is going to be able to fight the inflation that spending bill creates?
I don't necessarily think it is going to do a great job, but I can see that it's going to definitely have an impact by contracting the money supply as people do things that need to pay back interest rate and pay taxes.
Okay.
Well, okay.
So
I guess
yes, it will. There's
I'm-
this whole
You still
steps
convinced he
inside in the middle. It's
understands,
very
Sitch?
important to
Are
get
you
to,
still
but
convinced he
yeah.
understands?
What? Okay.
I'm
What?
agreeing with you. You just laid out like, hey, is this thing true? I'm like, yeah, it is. We could dicker on the minutia and get more granular about it, sure, but yeah, in the layman's perspective,
Well, in that situation, let's say you're saying that the Fed can raise interest rates and stave off the coming inflation. I disagree with you there. I think that's not going to happen. I think we're going to be in a
They could
hyper.
attempt it. You're just saying they might not be successful.
You know, maybe they set the interest rate at
that's what they're-
10,000%. Okay, they're like no
That's what
loans
I'm getting
ever.
at.
Okay,
No. Okay. But that's okay. So maybe that's a problem with some of the discussion there.
just
and how it's
just for this,
contextualized,
just let
because intent or execution, I'm not sure.
Doge. Regardless, okay,
But-
regardless. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say this does cause some kind of hyperinflation. I'm curious from a moral perspective, are you going to blame the Congress that spent the $200 trillion? Or are you going to blame the Fed that raised interest rates to 10,000%? Who's the responsible party here?
I'm going to blame the system that made it possible.
Oh, okay. So he doesn't want to answer. All
sorry.
right. Evasion. Let's move on.
Would say, no, hold on. Whoa. No, hold on. It was just internet upset.
I mean, it's such a simple answer. I mean, it's so clear.
I hold on. I'm just having some difficulty with the audio because it's not coming through for you then.
Okay.
So in that case, I would blame the system that
this is so evasive. This is so evasive.
I'm not. No. This is no. Listen, that's what I was getting at. Is it's important to have proper granularity in the conversation to be able to lay out what exactly is happening.
I want the thought experiment. You've already answered.
I think I had a dream about this argument.
You've already answered. Doge, you've already answered. I want to propose
a future
Senate
dream
probably
about
the
this
most to blame for forcing the spending.
I want to propose.
Let me interject.
You did
here.
answer.
Now I'm gonna moderate here. Okay. What's the point, I guess, of not saying that the primary fault here is Congress? Like, I don't even understand what the point of not saying that is.
Because I would be trying to make the point that the solution I'd be looking for is not to try to fix Congress, but to disable Congress's ability to even do that.
Okay, I understand that, but that's not really what's being the point is. I guess the point that is being gotten at is, which I don't understand either, is that people like Ostracy and other people, and I hear this all the time, they really hate the Fed. And in my understanding, the Fed is kind of like this janitor that's trying to clean up the mess that Congress makes. And I guess I don't really understand what is the Fed doing that pisses everyone off so much versus Congress.
I think I can present that, and thank you, Sitch, for proposing like that. And this is an example of why I would be blaming the system and wanting to say, I'm going to blame the system as opposed to an individual party, because we're trying to draw attention to, yeah, in this case, you're kind of right. One of the jobs the Fed is doing is acting as this janitor trying to clean things up with an interest rate, but also consider that it had to produce the money to credit to the federal bank accounts, to the government bank accounts, for them to go do the spending. Now, I realize and totally acknowledge the Senate can just tell the Fed to do that. They don't have an ability to stop the Fed. The Fed's only response to a massive demand by the government like that is to change the interest rate and to say, okay, government, you want to borrow that much money? You're borrowing at this interest rate, and the deficit is going to accrue at this rate because of that. I would be trying to drive home that whatever is going on with Congress, that they made that happen, they're strong-arming. Basically, you can look at it kind of like the Fed is the janitor and the mob enforcer. It's causing the mess, but it's being forced to cause the mess because it can't tell the government no. All it can do is help cause the mess under duress, and then try to run around cleaning things up with the interest rate. The problem is the interest rate, when the government doesn't care about the deficit, the cleanup effort is now entirely directed at the public. And the government's attempt to deal with the deficit is to, again, point the cleanup effort entirely at the public with the taxes. So I'd rather have a solution that puts a better check on the government's ability to just force the Fed to print a bunch of money so they can spend it, and then leave it as an interest rate that doesn't really affect the government and screws everyone else.
I mean, I understand all of that. I understand that's your position. I understand that's a lot of people's position. I guess what I still don't understand why. What is the Fed doing anything that people hate that's independent of being coerced into doing it via Congress?
This is where I think the conversation, unfortunately, had, because of the limitations of chat, that people can't have conversations like this. The fact that there's a price per character and then you use super chat reduces
Don't
the
make
granularity.
excuses for office. We love office. Okay, that's fine. But I've heard this from a lot of people. A lot of animosity is directed at the Fed.
I think it's because, as far as people see from the layman's perspective, the Fed is producing money. And the whole strong arm control mechanism the government has for making the Fed print money is hidden away. And as you pointed out, Adam, with under your MMT advocation, that taxation does not go to spending, that it's contraction of the money supply essentially to pay down the debt, and then the spending is producing money. It's people don't have that knowledge. The granularity of that gets lost in the conversation because people simplify it down to stuff like spending creates money. And then they get triggered and their elephant runs rampant when you try to get into the granularities. Go, yeah, you're right, but there's a very important point that's being missed in the conversation here. And if we don't highlight that by discussing it, then the public is going to get the wrong impression, and they're going to haul off and go like, well, the Fed's fucking evil. Look at them. They're just printing all this money. Or like, okay, but if you look behind the Fed, the government is literally twisting their arm, making them print the money. So like, don't necessarily blame the Fed. They're part of the problem in that they're part of the system that enables this to happen.
Gotcha.
But don't exactly target them. But it's really easy for people to misunderstand when we don't get into the details.
You have a lot of crypto friends that blame the Fed, don't you? That's why you're answering it so carefully. Right?
It's a pretty simple moral question.
A lot of crypto friends that hate inflation.
They
hate all of my financial designs where I have inflation and deflation baked in, and they're just like, fuck you, everything should be a static supply and they should never grow. Like you don't understand monetary policy. No wonder all of your projects fail, and mine account for several billion market cap.
So people should, if they want to direct their animosity, they should direct it at Congress, essentially. Really?
Yeah. But even then, I'm not entirely sure how to blame Congress because they're caught up in their own bullshit system that doesn't give them good information on how to make good decisions and incentivizes them to make bad decisions. And it's just a giant mess. And this is the problem with a massive centralized system. Like, to get it all the way back to why it doesn't work, when you get a massive centralized system that's very tall, it's disconnected from what it's trying to control, it takes on a life of its own, and it can't really do its job well at all. It's just not possible.
Vishnu Archer in the
Let's,
chat is very upset, saying, "Stop saying taxation changes the money supply." Okay, I'm not sure.
Well, it does.
Yeah,
Because
I
when
don't
the
know.
Fed
I don't know what
has
they
the
mean by that. Yeah.
The
when the
one
deficit is
thing that
paid
we
back to
all
the Fed,
agree
the Fed
on, and
literally
you're trying to
destroys
take that away from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it does, because again, lost in the granularity of the conversation is that
Right.
when taxes bring it in, and taxes are used to then pay back the deficit, the Fed just deletes the money from existence. It just doesn't exist on the record anymore.
Exactly. Okay.
All right, Coyote Doge. This conversation has been amazing. We're gonna have to move on because we have I think we have like a shitload of super chats. Do we have more super chats on this topic before we move on?
There's a couple more.
Okay, let's read those.
Fondue for $5 says, Adam, would it be useful to have systems that increase internet based on the amount of transactions to curb inflation for individual markets?
I mean, the different people do have different ideas about how to deal with the inflation problem. The central policy proposal of MMT is the jobs guarantee program, but I don't necessarily know if that fights inflation. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you got to shrink the money supply.
Actually,
so
I can answer that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can answer that, because another way to fight inflation is to increase the buying power of the money. So if there is more value being able to be purchased in the market, then and the value generated is more concentrated, like it's a greater value through efficient production, then you can effectively contract the money supply because you can buy more things with less money.
Well, he's also asking about the
fights
number of
inflation.
transactions, so I don't know. He's tying it to the number of transactions, which I don't necessarily know, because you can have high dollar value transactions that are causing inflation. So it's not necessarily a one-to-one.
That would be a way to get the signal back to the government on controlling the inflation by using the taxation at the point of sale to measure the value that's being generated and transacted. So it would be able to give that signal of, oh, the market is generating this much more value. And we can see that because people are buying the value.
Austria for $10.
Austria for $10 says, I do not hate the Fed at all. There you go. Thank you, Austria. I hate Adam's defense of the Fed that seems to give them credit for good things and displace blame for bad things. Well, I understand that, but I guess, I mean, my conceptualization is like that would be the only way to conceptualize the Fed, because the Fed isn't doing, I guess the question Austria would be, what is the Fed doing that is independent from Congress that is bad, that you don't like? Right? That would be the question, because if I'm just conceptualizing them as the janitor cleaning up the mess, then
yeah, they're
we literally just had that
cleaning up
conversation explaining.
Right. Okay.
Lord Hank of House Hill.
Lord Hank of House Hill for $20 says, I'm a couple streams late, but Sitch and Doomer both have cringe takes on New Vegas. The house always wins. Take humanity to space. Look at you simping for old man House with his little dick tube living in his cryopod. Man, fuck that guy.
The house always wins.
Of course you would say that, Doge. You want to be Mr. House.
I want my robot body, goddammit.
Exactly.
That sounds pretty fun.
NCR all the way, baby.
I want a robot body that can fly in space.
Shall we say goodbye to Mr. Doge?
Yes. Thanks for coming, Doge. I enjoyed this conversation despite the fact that it got
I'm glad it did. No, I enjoyed it getting heated. So thank you. This was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, it was. And I think we found some common ground. We've clarified a lot of points. The whole crypto thing doesn't have to be as contentious as some folks might think. We can get along.
Well, I wish the best. I know a lot of people are invested in crypto, so I don't want to see them lose their life savings by any means. So
right.
I'm working to keep that from happening.
Diversify. Get some of that money out of there. Get it in real estate.
Definitely.
And I'm glad that you came on, because I finally, after this conversation, I finally understand why people feel the way they do about blockchain. I never understood it till today. So thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you. I'm very glad I could clarify that.
Yes, it all makes sense to me.
I will leave you to the rest of your stream. Thank you very much for having me on.
You.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Right.
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.